Hello friends and welcome to this video on Authentic English, and today we are going to discuss the poem Dover Beach written by Matthew Arnold. Before we begin with the explanation of the poem, I would like you to subscribe to my channel if you have not already done so, because I'm going to regularly post videos on literature that can be very helpful. So let's begin with the explanation of this poem known as Dover Beach. So Dover Beach was written by Matthew Arnold, who was an English poet in 1867. So this poem is more than 100 years old. Okay, so this is quite an old poem. Okay, so the poem is set in the narrowest part of the English Channel, the English ferry port of Dover in England, when Matthew Arnold went for a honeymoon in 1851. Okay, so look at the title of the poem, Dover Beach. So Dover is a place, okay, and this beach definitely refers to a, shore. Okay, the shore of Dover. So let's get a little more info about this place. Okay, so this place is located in the English Channel. Now, if you know what the English Channel is, it's the sea that separates France and England. Okay, so it's a great water body, a large water body that separates France and England. Okay, so it flows between France and England. So this poem is set in the English ferry port of Dover in England. Okay, so where this poem is set is the place located in England. Okay, place located on the English shore. Okay, and this place is known as Dover. So this is where the poem is set, and this is the place where Matthew Arnold went for a honeymoon with his wife, of course, in 1851. So almost 16 years before this poem was written, Matthew Arnold had gone for a honeymoon to this place. So this poem, many critics believe, is inspired by that honeymoon. Okay, so there is something very crucial that I would like to tell you about this place that will help you in the understanding of the poem. The thing is that this place where Matthew Arnold and his wife are sitting is located in England, and then there is a great sea. Okay, but just look at the line here, the narrowest part of the English Channel. Okay, so there is the sea in between. The sea lasts only for 20 miles, and after 20 miles one can see the French coast. Okay, so the poet and his wife are sitting on the English coast, then there is the sea, and then on the other side of the sea is the French coast. Okay, so this is the place. You can kind of imagine it in your mind. I'll show you the map in the next slide, which is going to make everything seem more understandable. So this is what the poem is, this is where the poem is set. Okay, the place is located in England, English ferry port of Dover in England, located in the narrowest part of the English Channel that separates France and England, where Matthew Arnold went for a honeymoon in 1851. So this is a little background and a little setting of the poem. Now, there are quite a few important things about this poem that I would like to tell you. That first of all, this poem is very critically acclaimed. That is, many critics believe that it is an important poem. Okay, so this is considered to be an important poem critically. Okay, in the literary world, it holds a lot of importance. So Dover Beach, amongst all the poems that are there in the ISC course this time, is, I believe, one of the most important poems. So Dover Beach was written at a time when England had seen the Industrial Revolution and was moving towards modernity. So there is a little background I would like to give you for this poem. See, first of all, what happened was that Industrial Revolution in England lasted from 1760 to 1840. You can see this written on the slide that's on the screen. Okay, the Industrial Revolution in England lasted from 1760 to 1840, and the poem was written somewhere in 1867. So this poem was written after the Industrial Revolution. Also, during all this time, there were a lot of scientific discoveries that were taking place, especially in England. Okay, the discovery by Charles Darwin, okay, on the origin of species and all that stuff. So there were a lot of scientific discoveries. There was the invention of a lot of machines, and everything was getting industrialized and more scientific. Now, this was the time when people began losing their faith in religion. Okay, there was this debate of science and religion. Okay, this is where everything kind of arose, that science began to slowly take over faith, and this was definitely not liked by this poet known as Matthew Arnold. Okay, so he did not like this idea that science is coming and just taking over religion. People are losing their faith in religion. People are forgetting what Christianity is, and people are believing more in this new thing, this new era. Okay, this new science. Okay, a lot of scientific discoveries were taking place, and the Industrial Revolution was there. So people kind of, it happens when a lot of industrialization and a lot of scientific progress is made. in any country, the country kind of begins losing faith. The country starts becoming modern. Okay, the old tradition, the old ideas are put behind. So this was what was happening in England, somewhere around the time this poem was written. Now modernity is often associated with loss of faith. Okay, so people began losing faith, especially in religion, nature, etc. And this is something which in certain sense lamented in this poem. Okay, so this loss of faith, this loss of faith is lamented about in the poem. The poet is feeling very sad about the fact that due to these new scientific discoveries, this industrialization and all of this modern processes, people are forgetting their roots, people are forgetting their faith in religion. So this is what is lamented in the poem. The poet talks about the sadness in human life, especially because people began losing their faith at the close of the industrial revolution. Okay, so this poem talks about the sadness in human life. Okay, this poem says that this modern life, that we are slowly adopting is only sad. It does not allow us to be happy. This life which is devoid of religion, this life that is devoid of faith, this life in which we cannot see the beauty of nature but we are becoming automatons, is only full of sadness. Okay, so this is a poem that brings us face to face with the sadness that is in our lives even today. Okay, let's forget about what is talked about in the poem. Let's talk about what we see today in today's world. India, if we talk about India, okay, so India is a developing country, and people, and we are slowly becoming more industrialized, more modern, and you can definitely see that we are kind of becoming westernized day by day. But it is also apparent in a certain sense that yes, our lives, the happiness that we had earlier is slowly diminishing away. So you can link this poem when you are writing your answers. You can link all of these things, that if you take it in the present context, if you have a reading of this poem in the present context, you can feel that with modernity people begin losing that happiness that was there in the smaller things of the days of yore. Okay, earlier we used to have joint families, and now we are moving towards this system of having smaller families. Earlier we used to treat our relatives better, and now when somebody comes at our house, we feel kind of burdened by their presence. So with modernity there definitely is some kind of fissure in human relationships. So this is what is lamented about in this poem, that human life, the modern human life, is only full of sadness. There is nothing here. The world seems hollow, although there may be lots of development. Okay, so there may be a lot of development around. The world may start to look more beautiful than it was in the past, but externally everything may look bright and happy and nice, new, but internally everything is kind of rotten. So this is the central idea of the poem. Okay, so this is what the background to the poem is. So why he wrote this poem? Because he was kind of upset by this overtaking of religion by science and technology and industrial revolution. Okay, so what happens in the poem is described here in the third paragraph. The poet sits near a shore and listens to the sound of the waves rubbing against the pebbles on the shore. So what happens is, so they are near the sea. They means the poet and his wife. Okay, you can take in this sense that the poet and his wife are in a room near the sea, and they are seeing the waves rubbing over the stones on the shore. Okay, so there is the sea that is outside, and then there is the seashore, that is the beach. Okay, the waves are coming and brushing over the pebbles that are lying on the shore, and they are producing a sound. And the sound of the waves, the poet says, is very melancholy. He says that the sound of the waves is only gloomy, and it kind of reflects the modern human life, which is only sad. Okay, so you can just imagine the sound of the waves in your mind. Okay, there is a very calm sound. The waves are coming and going. Okay, so there is a sound that is produced by the waves. You must have heard that sound in movies and TV shows. You must have heard that sound a lot of times, so you can just visualize that sound. So that sound, he says, is kind of gloomy, and he relates that to painful modern human existence of humans, devoid of the happiness that perhaps was there in the past. Okay, so in the last paragraph of the poem, the poet urges us to love and be truthful to one another. And when the poem ends, the poet says that the modern world is only chaotic. The modern world is not happy. So let's decide to be truthful to one another. Let's begin to love, begin to love each other. And the poet says that to his wife, that love, let's be true to each other in this world which is full of gloom, sadness, and which is fake, which is very artificial. So when we read the poem, everything is going to get clear. This is just a general idea of what the poem is all about. First of all, the poet says to his beloved, or to the readers in general, that the world is a gloomy place to be in. And then when the poem ends, the poet says to the wife, and also all to the leaders, that we should love each other, because the world is a gloomy place to be in. The world is fake, the world is artificial, and only love, love and truthfulness is going to keep us happy in this world. So the poet kind of gives us a ray of hope towards the end, that yes, if we are lovable, if we are truthful, if we are ready to love, we definitely may be happy in this modern, fake and artificial world. So this is kind of a summary that I tried to give of this poem known as Dover Beach. Everything is going to get clear to you when I discuss the poem, line by line. So let's begin. The sea is calm tonight, the tide is full, the moon lies fair upon the straits. On the French coast the light gleams and is gone. The cliffs of England stand glimmering and vast, out in the tranquil bay. Come to the window, sweet is the night air. Only from the long line of spray where the sea meets the moon-blanched land. Listen, you hear the grating roar of pebbles which the waves draw back and fling at their return up the high strand. Begin and cease and then begin again, with tremulous cadence slow, and bring the eternal note of sadness in. So this is the first stanza of the poem. So the poet is looking at the sea. The poet, presumably along with his wife, look at the quiet sea. The sea is calm tonight. He says that the sea is very calm. The sea is very calm. The sea is not, very chaotic. It's kind of a scenario. The sea is calm. The tide is full. The moon lies fair. It's high tide and the moon looks beautiful in the sky. So the moon is shining and the tide is full. So the sea is coming and going back, but there is an overall calmness in the sea. Upon the straits. Now the straits refers to the narrow parts of the water. The moon lies fair upon the straits. So on the water, you can see the reflection of the moon. The moon is looking beautiful. The moonlight reflects on the narrow passage of water on the French coast. So the moonlight is reflecting. On the French coast, the light gleams and is gone. Now, as I told you earlier, the poet can easily look across the sea on the French coast, and he can see that the light of the moon is, kind of coming and going on the French coast. So he is able to look on the French coast. The moonlight first gleams and then the moonlight disappears from the French coast. Why does that happen? Because of probably of the waves. The waves are coming and going, and therefore the moonlight seems to come and go. The cliffs of England stand glimmering and vast, out in the tranquil bay. Now what happens is, after the light from the French coast disappears, the poet starts again to think about the English coast, where he is right now. So he looks at the English coast. The cliffs of the English stand glimmering and vast. Now you can see in the picture that I've given right here that there are a lot of cliffs. The English part of this cliff, the English part of this sea has a lot of cliffs. These cliffs are white in color. So these are the cliffs that the poet is talking about. The cliffs of England stand glimmering and vast. So the cliffs of England are also shining in the moonlight, and they are looking vast, out in the tranquil bay, and the water body that is surrounding them is tranquil, again calm. So everything looks calm. You can see it's a calm and a very descriptive type of atmosphere that is established by the poet. Come to the window, sweet is the night air. Everything looks kind of beautiful here till now. Now come to the window, sweet is the night air. The poet calls someone to the window, and this definitely can be a reference to his wife, with whom he honeymooned here in 1851. The poet calls someone to the window, perhaps his wife, to observe the scene and enjoy the sweet air. He says that the air is very sweet. Come and look. Only from the long line of spray where the sea meets the moon-blanched land, listen, you hear the grating roar of pebbles which the waves draw back and fling. Now, in all these lines, only from only till back and fling, the poet shifts his attention back to the sea. From the long line of spray. Long line of spray means the long line of the sea. Okay, the long line of the sea, where the sea meets the moon blanched land. Now what happens is the poet is shifting his attention to the place where the sea strikes the coast, where the sea strikes the land. Okay, the poet then shifts his attention to the sea, particularly the place where the sea meets the moonlit land, and asks the other person to listen to the sound of the waves as they strike the pebbles on the shore, making a grating sound which is not calm. Now what happens is that when this sea comes to the shore, strikes the shore, okay, it draws back the pebbles and then flings them and then throws them back as the sea comes in and recedes. Okay, as the sea comes in and goes out, the sea first of all takes back the stones that are lying on the coast and then also throw back those stones on the coast, making a very grating noise. Okay, so there the sea is producing a noise. Okay, only from the long line of spray where the sea meets the moon blanched land, listen, you hear the grating roll of pebbles which the waves draw back and fling. So this is on the English side, that there are a lot of pebbles on the on the ground, and when the sea water comes to the shore, it first of all takes all the pebbles with it and then throws them all onto the sea when the wave comes back. So this is what is happening, and this process is producing a grating roar, a noise. Okay, a grating noise of pebbles which the waves draw back and fling. Fling means to throw something. So what happens is, first of all, the waves take the stones with them and they bring it back, and then they throw it on the sand again, making a grating noise. At their return, up the high strand begin and cease and then again begin. So when they return, they throw the stones back again on the shore. So this is happening, and this is producing a lot of noise. Okay, and this process is repeating again and again, begin and cease and then again begin. Okay, so this is what is happening, this is what is described. The sound is produced as the pebbles are pulled by the wave and then thrown to the shore again. This sound keeps continually repeating itself, as does the action of the waves on the land, and this sound keeps repeating itself. Okay, with tremulous cadence slow, and brings the eternal note of sadness in. Now look at the meaning of the word cadence and tremulous. Tremulous means something which is quivering and shaking. Okay, and bring the eternal note of sadness in. Now these last two lines are very important, and cadence means a rhythm. What happens is that in these last two lines, the poet says that this process of taking back the stones and then throwing them back again on the shore by the sea waves is happening in a kind of a rhythm that is kind of vibrating, a vibrating or a shaking rhythm. Okay, so what happens is the waves come, they throw the pebbles on the shore and then they take them back with it. So this process is producing kind of a rhythm that is kind of sad to listen to. You can imagine this kind of a sound, the calm sound of the stones grating against on the shore. Okay, they're first coming in and going back. So this is definitely producing a regular pattern of sound that is described as rhythm. Okay, and what happens in this rhythm is that this rhythm is described as a tremulous cadence, that is a shaking rhythm. Okay, this rhythm is kind of shaky because of the presence of the stones. The stones are rubbing and they're producing a grating roar, the eternal note of sadness in. And then the poet says that this rhythm is kind of gloomy. This rhythm has kind of a gloomy effect. Okay, this is making him feel melancholic. Okay, why does he say that? Probably because he's trying to strike the idea that this modern life is very bleak, very unhappy. So he can sense that unhappiness in the sea waves that are bringing the stones and then taking them back on the shore. So this was the first paragraph. I hope you've understood what is meant by the poet in this stanza. So first of all, he describes the sea and what is happening. Okay, and from this he is able to make an atmosphere of gloominess. Okay, he says that this brings the eternal note of sadness, and that is the sadness that is going to last forever. Okay, this is not like a temporary sadness, but the sadness that is engulfing the entire earth, the entire modern period. Okay, the speaker observes a slow shaky rhythm in the sound produced by the waves and eventually says that the rhythm makes him feel sad. This way he highlights the melancholy in the lives of the people. So this is what is said by the poet in this stanza. Now again, this there is a major jump from the present. Okay, so you can see I provided you a map of the Aegean Sea and Sophocles, so we'll find it when we discuss this paragraph. So but first of all, you need to know that this is like a kind of a scene that is established by the poet, and he says absolutely at the beginning of the poem that the sea waves make him feel sad. Okay, so you can understand that this poem is going to be about something sad. Okay, now let's move on to paragraph number 2. Sophocles long ago heard it on the Aegean, and it brought into his mind the turbid ebb and flow of human misery. We find also in the sound of a thought, hearing it by this distant northern sea. Now, what happened is that in the past there was this Greek tragedian known as Sophocles. Okay, so he was a Greek playwright, just like Shakespeare was a playwright. He used to write plays. This Sophocles was also a playwright, a Greek playwright that used to live long, long ago, and he used to write tragedies. Okay, so it is said. Now, first of all, we'll discuss these two things: Sophocles and this Aegean Sea. Now, the Aegean Sea was the sea that flowed between, that was a part of the Mediterranean Sea, which is located between the mainlands of Greece and Turkey. Okay, so just like the Dover Beach is located between France and England, this Aegean Sea was located between Greece and Turkey. Okay, so there is a kind of parallel between the two seas. Okay, now what the poet is doing here is drawing a parallel between him and this Greek tragedian Sophocles. Okay, he's comparing himself with this Greek tragedian Sophocles and saying that long, long ago, Sophocles also heard the same sound. Okay, the same sound on the Aegean Sea, and it brought into his mind the turbid ebb and flow of human misery. Okay, so what happened was, in the past, he says that Sophocles heard the song of the Aegean Sea, and it brought to his mind brought into his mind the sad condition of human life. Okay, human misery, just like the sound of the sea now brings to the mind of the poet the sad condition of human life. In the past, when Sophocles heard the sound of the Aegean Sea, it brought into his mind the sad condition, the sad existence of human life, and perhaps it was what drew him to write all those tragedies that he was an expert of. So this is the kind of parallel that is being drawn. So such an interesting parallel, and you can see that the poet has jumped across time to establish this kind of parallel. He is now not talking about the present but talking about the past. He is not talking about the beach of Dover now, but has gone to the Aegean Sea that used to flow between the mainlands of Greece and Turkey. So this is what is implied in this poem. Sophocles long ago heard it on the Aegean, and it brought into his mind the turbid ebb and flow of human misery. Okay, so turbid means something which is unclear. Ebb and flow of human misery, that means to say that the sound of the Aegean Sea reminded this guy Sophocles of human misery. That is, he also felt sad on listening to the sound of the Aegean Sea, and that is why perhaps he became such a good tragedian. He mastered in writing tragedies because perhaps he understood that human life is miserable, just like he does that now, just like the poet does that now. Okay, we find also in the sound of a thought, hearing it by this northern sea. And now the poet says that we also find similar thoughts. We also have similar thoughts when we refers to the poet and his wife, probably, that we also have similar thoughts when we are listening to the sound of the northern sea, that is the English Channel, that the sea that is flowing between France and England. Okay, so let's have look at the description. The sound of the waves reminds the poet of the sound playwright Sophocles heard when he stood next to the Aegean Sea, and that sound also made him ponder over miserable human existence. The waves of turbid water symbolize human misery. Okay, so the waves symbolize human misery. In a similar manner, they also can feel the essence of human misery in looking at the English Channel. So this was a parallel that was tried to be drawn by the poet. Okay, so I hope that you've been able to understand these two paragraphs now. So this is not a very difficult poem. The only thing that you need to keep in mind is that when you are attempting this poem, you have to keep the central idea in mind, that devastated by this devastated by the lack of faith in modern England, the poet had to write this poem. And now, paragraph number 3, which is very important. The sea of faith was once too at the full, and round earth's shore lay like the folds of a bright girdle furled, but now I only hear its melancholy long withdrawing roar, retreating to the breath of the night wind down the vast edges drear and naked shingles of the world. Now, in this important paragraph, okay, the poet, brings out a metaphor, the sea of faith. Now, looking at this sea, he is able to think of another sea, the sea of faith. Now, what can you think about the sea of faith? Now, the sea of faith was the majestic load of people that used to have faith in the past. Okay, so the sea of faith actually refers to the sea, or in other words, all the people who believed in religion and all in the days of yore. So in the past days, okay, in the glory days, there were a lot of people, okay, who believed in religion, who had faith. So the poet is talking about them now, the sea of faith, okay, all the people who constituted the faithful kingdom. The sea of faith was once too at the full, and round earth's shore lay like the folds of a bright girdle furled, but now I only hear its melancholy long withdrawing roar. So he says that in the past, this sea of faith was surrounding the entire earth. That is, faith was there all over the world in the days of past, in the past days, not in the present. The present situation is much worse. He says that this sea of faith was once too all full, was at its high tide, was flowing fully, okay, was flowing in full power, and surrounded all the earths, okay, and round earth's shore, and surrounded all of the earth, okay. But now I only hear its melancholy long withdrawing roar, retreating to the breath of the night wind. However, now the sea has receded, okay, the sea has gone back, okay. No, first of all, there is this line, lay like the folds of a bright girdle furled. The sea of faith was like a large decorative belt, okay. The sea is compared to a large belt that surrounded the earth, okay. So you can see that how poetic this paragraph is. The sea of faith, this all the people who had faith in religion and all, they were like a nice decorative belt that run all around the world. But now the sea of faith has receded, but now the sea of faith is going back, okay. And now, but now I only hear, that the poet says, now he can only hear its melancholy long withdrawing roar, its sad withdrawing roar. That is, the sea is withdrawing, the sea is going back, the sea is receding, and now all that is left is its melancholy roar, okay. The present sea, which is melancholy, also reminds to him that now the sea is no longer the way it used to be. The sea is now withdrawing, and now the voice, the sound that is being produced from the sea is melancholy and sad, retreating to the breath of the night wind down the vast edges drear and naked shingles of the world, okay. So these lines are very important and are kind of hard to explain for me, but instead I'm going to try to explain to you in a way that you can understand it nicely. So the sea, he says, now is just drawing back, and this is very saddening, retreating to the breath of the night wind. As the sea is withdrawing, the sound is becoming dull, and all the sound that can only be heard then is the sound of the night wind, okay. The sea is kind of receding and leaving behind only the night wind. The word night can tell us of darkness, that as the sea of faith is going back, there is only darkness left behind. People are becoming more and more ignorant. As people are losing faith, as the sea of faith is going back, there is only ignorance and lack of knowledge and lack of happiness that is there. Down the vast edges drear and naked shingles of the world. Now you can see that in these two lines, the poet says, as the sea goes back, it leaves behind on the shore naked shingles of the world, that is pebbles. The pebbles are described as naked because the water has been withdrawn from them, okay. There is now no water on them, and it feels like the pebbles have become naked. Earlier they were covered by the water, okay, but now when the sea has withdrawn, when the sea has gone back, the pebbles are all naked, okay. So I hope you are able to get all this imagery. Now what happened is that the sea has receded and the pebbles are naked. So On a metaphorical level, it says when the sea of faith has receded, it has left all of us naked. Okay, so there is an implication of nakedness, that without faith we are all naked. Without faith we are all, ignorant. We do not have any knowledge, we do not have any happiness. Okay, now the sea of faith has receded and we are all naked, just like the pebbles that are lying on the shore, and when the water goes back, the pebbles are left naked. And in a similar fashion, we are also becoming troubled and we are also sad because the water is finally going back. Okay, so I'll read out the description to you. The sea of faith actually refers to the sea, or in other words, all the people who believed in religion and all. There was a time when the sea was in its full fervor, just like the English Channel, implying that there was a time in the past when religion was in full swing and science did not pose a threat to it. So there was a time when religion was in full swing and there was no problem at all. The sea was like a bright belt around the earth in its glory days. However, now the sea is receding back and there is no high tide. The sound of the withdrawing sea can be heard, the gloomy sound that reminds the poet of the diminishing faith in the face of science and industrialization. So now the sea is going back and the sound that it is producing is very gloomy. Okay? And it only implies the loss of faith, and thereby the human life becoming miserable. Now as the sea is going back, okay, everything is becoming worse. The roar seems to recede and it leaves behind only the night wind, just like the sea leaves behind the stones as it recedes. Okay, so it only leaves behind darkness, ignorance and nakedness. So this is what is implied in the poem, that as we are losing faith, we are only becoming naked, we are only becoming ignorant, and we are only living in a world of darkness. Okay, so I hope everything is kind of making sense to you. You'll be able to write it well in your answers if you understood it well. Okay, so now let's move on to the last paragraph of the poem. I did not want to make this video so long, but this is a pretty decent poem to explain. Ah, love, let us be true to one another, for the world which seems to lie before us like a land of dreams, so various, so beautiful, so new, hath really neither joy nor love, nor light, nor certitude, nor peace, nor help for pain. So many nors, and we are here as on a darkling plain, swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night. Okay, so this is the last paragraph of the poem. Pretty simple, and if you want to summarize it in just 2 or 3 lines, it means that the world is a bad place to live in, that the world is unhappy, the world is hollow. Okay, the world is hollow, there is nothing real in this world, in this modern world. So the only way we can thrive here is by being true to at least each other. Okay, we don't need to have all the vices in ourselves. Actually, he's saying that to his lover. Ah, love, let us be true to one another. Okay, he's saying that to his lover, okay, to his wife. But in a general sense, he's saying that to all of us, that we need to be, at least truthful to each other. We need to have the feelings of love and kindness in our hearts in this modern world, which is full of pain and sorrow. Okay, so let's discuss this paragraph in detail. In this stanza, the poet clearly seems to be giving out the message of the poem. Okay, so he's giving out the message of the poem. He is as clear as possible. He's now back again to the present time. He begins by addressing his beloved, remembering it's sometimes called a honeymoon poem. Okay, so he's actually addressing his beloved, okay, probably his wife, to be true to each other. He says, our love, let us be true to one another. Okay, let us be faithful in our loves. Let us be true to one another, never deceive. Okay, so this is what he's saying. He asks for a faithful relationship in a faithless world. He says that the world is faithless. At least we can be faithful to each other. That is what he's saying. So he's in a general giving out a message to all of the readers that you have to be faithful. At least do not have any vices. Do not imbibe any vices in your heart. At least keep your heart pure. If you cannot, stop the world from becoming modern, if you cannot stop the world from losing faith, at least you can be faithful. At least be faithful, if not to God, to the people who are there to surround you, to your relatives, to your loved ones. Okay? For the world which seems to lie before us like a land of dreams. Okay? Now he says, because the world that is lying in front of us, this new modern world, is like a land of dreams. This world is imaginative and fiction-like. Okay? The world, he says, is not real. This modern world, he kind of means to say, is artificial. Okay, he points out clearly that this new modern world that lies before their eyes is deprived of the beautiful human sentiments of joy, love, and correct knowledge. He says that in the modern world there is no space for human sentiments in majority of people. We see that people are becoming more and more, you know, business minded. People are becoming cleverer these days. People want to make money. Humanity is losing ground, and this holds true even today. Not He wrote this poem in the time of 1857, and we can think that 1857 was a glorious time. At least people were kind of true to each other. Okay, but even at that time he says this thing, and now you know that this holds even greater importance, that people are losing humanity, okay, in the face of all this, you know, industrialization and modernity. It holds importance even today. Okay, he says that this world is deprived of all the human qualities now. Qualities of joy, love, okay, light, that means knowledge, certitude, peace. Okay, you see that there were so many wars in the ancient times. People are fighting, people are dying. Okay, everything is kind of so hollow. This modern world is not a good place to be in. Okay, so he says that at least if this is not a good place to be in, at least you can make yourself a good person. This is what you can think of the poem implies. He points out clearly that this new modern world that lies before us, before their eyes, is deprived of the beautiful human sentiments of joy, love, and correct knowledge. The world is artificial and is not peaceful at all. So there is no peace in this modern world. In fact, it's like in modernity we lose humanity and begin to ignore the problems of fellow men for the sake of our own survival. We are becoming more and more selfish. Okay, so all of this is being told in this paragraph. Okay, for the world which seems to lie before us like a land of dreams. Okay, like a unreal world, so various, so beautiful, so new. Now he uses 3 words to describe the new world. Various. Okay, there are a lot of new things, so beautiful, so new. So he kind of means to imply that there is a lot of external beauty in this world, but internal beauty has faded away. Okay, everything is very external in this world. People are putting on a lot of makeup, people are using all these kind of selfie cams to look beautiful, and you know, everything is kind of exterior. Inner beauty does not have any space in the modern world. So I'm also doing with you present kind of a reading of this poem along with the reading, the classical reading. Okay, so you can definitely write this in your answer and you'll definitely get more marks. So beautiful, so new. This world is new. Okay, the modern world hath really neither joy nor love nor light nor certitude nor peace nor help for pain. This world, which is new and beautiful outside, actually does not have any of these good things. It does not have joy. It does not have any space for love. People are cheating these days. You can see there are so many breakups and so many other things. No light. Okay, there is no space for light, nor certitude, nor peace, nor help for pain. People are not even ready to help each other. Hence, a poor and miserable picture of life is painted without a hope of happiness. In the last 3 lines, the poet alleges that we are living as if on a darkling plane, and we are living as if on a darkling plane. Now, what does the word darkling remind you of? There is another poem, Darkling Thrush, and you can see that there is a kind of similarity between the 2 poems. And if you want, you can compare the 2 poems in your exam. That is definitely going to be beneficial. Both the poems were written during almost the same time, and both the poems kind of have similar ideas. Okay, the world is chaotic and people are confused and perplexed. It's like the word darkling can symbolize ignorance and sadness, and we are here as on a darkling plane, swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night. Okay, these last 2 lines of the poem are very important, and I'm going to explain you why they are so important. The world is a chaotic place and people are confused and perplexed. Okay, so he says that we are as on a darkling plane, as on a dark piece of land. Everywhere there is darkness. People don't know what to do. People don't have the necessary light to take the appropriate actions. Okay, and we are here as on a darkling plane, swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight. We are confused. He says that we are full of ignorance. In this modern world, we are full of ignorance. The world is chaotic and people are confused and perplexed. They don't know what to do. It's like internally we are all hollow and know not what to do. Swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight. We are fighting with each other. Okay, we don't know who our enemies are, so we are fighting with each other. Where ignorant armies clash by night. So night again means a state of darkness. So what happens is, the poet makes a metaphor Okay, the metaphor of the army is taken probably from Thucydides' statement of the Peloponnesian War, and then talks about a similar one between Athens and Sicily, which was fought at night, and many Athenian soldiers inadvertently killed each other. So this last two lines where ignorant armies clash by night. So what happened was there was a war between Athens and Sicily. Okay. So what happens was there was a man known as Thucydides. Okay, Thucydides was an ancient philosopher. So he gave an account of the Peloponnesian War that was fought between Athens and Sparta. And while talking about this war, he also mentioned the war between Athens and Sicily. Okay, so Athens and Sicily went for a war, and what happened was that it was night time. So these soldiers from Athens did not know whom to attack, so they killed each other. What happens was the soldiers from Athens killed each other. Darkness thus causes misery, and here it can be the darkness of fading religion. So this is the metaphor that is drawn by the poet. He says that armies are killing each other, where ignorant armies clash by night. People don't know with whom to fight. So just like Athenian soldiers killed themselves, people are also killing themselves in this modern world, because they don't know whom to attack, who are their enemies. Okay, so our existence is actually dreadful. Okay, the world is compared to a battlefield where ignorant armies are fighting with each other. The armies are killing and ripping off everyone, and do not have the prudence to distinguish between friends and enemies. Okay, so in this modern world, friends and enemies are alike. Okay, we betray our friends for our selfish needs. There are so many instances in which relatives are the ones who do wrong to us. It symbolizes how people are ignorant in the modern world. So you can see that through this poem, the misery of the modern world is painted, and it kind of compels us to take action to bring about more peace and harmony in the world. The first two lines of this paragraph: let us be true to one another. Okay, this kind of means to say to us that at least in this modern world, which is full of sadness, we can be at least, faithful to ourselves. So this is what was meant in the poem Dover Beach. Okay, it's kind of giving us a message. It definitely has some ray of hope, at least, that through love and through happiness for each other, through good feelings, through goodwill for each other, we can make the world a better place to live in. So this was the poem Dover Beach. If you have any questions regarding this poem, definitely do ask me in the comment section below, and I'm going to reply to each one of your comments. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, and bye-bye.